my favorite games on one of the best console generations of all time would have to be Dead to Rights. I'm sure only those who played the game clicked on this vid, so no need to explain what the story's about, right? But what you probably didn't know was that there existed a comic book based on the first game. I got this bad boy at a mall back in 2003. The game released in 02, but I remember getting the comic in 03 because everything around me, like my surroundings, was just like Matrix merch. And as I mentioned before in a separate vid, 2003 was the year of the Matrix. Dead to Rights is an action noir game that I highly recommend you go back and replay it because it is still off the hook. This comic is 64 pages long, but it does not concentrate on Jack Slate. In fact, we don't even see Jack at all. This story concentrates on a guy called Palmer. He happens to be an undercover cop working for Mr. Sanderville, a kingpin we do not see in the game either. And since Palmer is working undercover, his real boss is Hennessy. After playing the game, you already know that Hennessy is the main antagonist that got Jack's father killed. So seeing that Palmer was working for him meant that this wouldn't end well for sure. See, the reason why this story does not revolve around Jack Slate is because we're actually shown the aftermath of Jack's vendetta. Palmer doesn't know Jack for shit, and the story starts out with him and two bodyguards escorting a man to do a laundry job with Fahook, another crime lord. Their driver was Marvin Silt, but as they're about to do business at a flower shop, one of the workers there is also an undercover cop. He aims his firearms at them and Palmer reacts, taking him out with 2 shots. He, of course, did not know that this was an undercover cop, and they're suddenly surrounded by GAC squads left and right. As soon as shots were fired, Marvin Silt decided to abandon the others for his safety. So they're on their own, and they put up a good fight, but the 2 bodyguards, Vic and Mackie, get taken down. GAC soldiers capture the man they were escorting, and Palmer exits out the back. Hennessy was waiting outside the exit, and this is where we realize that Palmer was working undercover for Hennessy, and he lets him go. After escaping, Palmer meets up with Mr. Sanderville and Dutch, who also works for this kingpin. He is torturing a man called Alvin for the shootout that just occurred. Someone ratted them out, and they were sure that Alvin had to be their snitch. Their boss knows he ain't the real snitch, but he trusts Palmer to find the right one. Palmer attends a funeral for Vic and Mackie, while officers nearby attend the funeral of the officers who were shot down during that raid. But in the distance, we're also shown Hildy visiting Franklin's grave, the father of Jack Slate. This is the only time we see her in this comic. After the funeral, Palmer gets a call from Hennessy. They discuss what happened at the flower shop, and Palmer tells him that Mr. Sanderville was pissed, and he wants to find the snitch right away. Hennessy tells him he'll find him a snitch, so his cover ain't blown. The next morning, we hear on the radio that there was a massive prison break at the Iron Point Penitentiary around midnight. This is one of the things I like about this story. As it proceeds, we hear about Jack Slate and what he's recently done, like escaping prison right when he was about to get fried by the electric chair. As for Palmer, he woke up just to find the body of Marvin Silt sitting on the passenger seat of his car. Dead. Yeah, I'm not gonna say unalive. Come on, people, grow your nuts back. So Marvin's dead, and he has a note pinned on him calling him the snitch. This goes terribly wrong for Palmer since Marvin Silt was the nephew of Mr. Sanderville. Well, step-nephew. But either way, Mr. Sanderville was content with his nephew, and he would lose his shit if he found out someone killed him. So Palmer gets a hold of Hennessy after hiding Marvin's body in his storage closet. Palmer explains to him that Marvin was like a son to Mr. Sanderville. Pinning Marvin as a snitch is not going to sound believable. So Hennessy tells him that if that's the case, then put the blame on Jack Slate. After everything he's done, it would only make sense that Jack interrogated Marvin and eliminated him after getting his answers. So now, Palmer goes over to deliver Mr. Sanderville the bad news about his nephew. Enraged over the news, Sanderville gathered some of his trusted criminal allies to a meeting regarding vengeance on Jack Slate for the murder of his nephew. Dutch tells Palmer he bets he'll find Marvin's killer before any of them do, and that he should watch his back. At around 8 p.m., Palmer visits the Black Orchid massage parlor, and since this is after Marvin was murdered, then we know that Jack Slate was there not too long ago. So the place is a goddamn mess. Palmer came here to talk to Pearl, which I don't think we met her in the game. She tells him that Marvin Silk would report to Gopher, who we did meet in the game. She believes that he must have set Marvin up. She also lets him know that Wireboy dropped by a couple times. He's the guy that helped Jack Slate escape the electric chair after getting him 25 packs of cigarettes, or comic books, as it says in the censored Game Boy Advance version. So now Palmer heads over to a bar an hour later where he meets Wireboy in person. This comic lets us know that he too managed to escape during the prison break, and he tells Palmer that he only helped Jack escape the prison. He had nothing to do with whoever tried to run him over as soon as he got out. It's now midnight, and Palmer arrives at a country club to get answers from Gopher. He wants to know why he sent Marvin to run over Jack Slate. Gopher tells him he doesn't know what he's talking about, and Dutch shows up and reveals that he sent Marvin to do the hit job on Jack.
Okay. What do you want? You want money? Is that it?
I want to know who hired you to run me down outside the prison.
What, that? That wasn't nothing personal, man. I was told that if anyone other than Tattoo popped out of that pipe, to give him the run over. You was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, mate.
Well, seeing as how I got your car, your phone, and your wallet, I'd say I was at the right place at the right time. Who gave you those instructions?
A guy named Gopher said he was working for some...
Jack Slate, I presume. You can relax. I was only after Silt.
Yeah, well, so was I, but I wasn't done with him yet.
Sorry, had to be done. You want to point that somewhere else?
You want to tell me why you killed Silt?
Just settling a score. Somebody from Mayhem Inc. killed my brother, and I aim to put things right.
Mayhem Inc.? What, that Assassin's Guild out of Broadway?
That's the one. Figure if I kill them all, I'll eventually get the guy who snuffed my brother through a process of elimination.
He asks why, and Dutch says he has other employers who he answers to, just like him. That's right. Dutch found out that Palmer was working for Hennessy, and that would make Palmer the snitch they were looking for. He also informs him that he found Marvin's body in Palmer's storage closet, and Mr. Sanderville was not happy when he found out. Suddenly, a group of armed men appear on opposite sides surrounding Palmer as Dutch mentions how screwed he is. So Palmer takes action and proceeds to fight his way out of this situation, and I gotta say, I love this little action scene because it is the perfect example of a gunfight in Dead to Rights. He uses dual weapons after tackling Dutch to the ground when they were all like 2 stories high. He drops their numbers while taking cover behind a vehicle. He dives to the side, popping a couple thugs down. He sneaks up behind this dude, uses him as a human shield, gets a headshot on the big guy, and now it's just Dutch, Palmer, and his human shield. As Dutch begins to reload while taking cover, he squabbles for a bit as Palmer has the frightened thug light him a cigarette. The two finally exchange shots. Palmer takes cover while shooting above Dutch, as the thug does what a shield does best. They both run out of bullets, and Dutch is ready for a fist fight. But he then looks up to see that he just got drenched in gasoline, and Palmer then proceeds to light the opponent on fire. Dutch, with his final breath, tells Palmer that he too is a dead man, that the Sandman's got guns rolling down on him as they speak, and they're gonna make him suffer before taking him out. Palmer replies, "Guess that makes you the lucky one." Now, it's 2 a.m. Palmer calls Hennessy in a payphone outside the Grant International Airport, and we see that Hennessy is outside the building where Gloria Exner's at, and he's surrounded by the gag squad, meaning this is the part where Jack Slate is in there tearing shit up putting fires out and disarming bombs. So Palmer explains everything to Hennessy. He tells him that his cover has been blown now that Dutch Sugarman told Sanderville that he's working undercover and that he killed his nephew Marvin Sill. Hennessy tells him, wait, you killed Dutch? He was also working undercover. Palmer's like, what? Why didn't you tell me? And he replies, the less you know, the better your cover. I don't know if he was just trying to get these men killed or if he truly believed that. I don't know. It's hard to read Hennessy. Maybe that's why you only drink it. But this bastard, man, why do this? That means Dutch didn't know either. That man had no idea that Palmer was his undercover brother this whole time. And they ended up ratting each other out. As they were discussing the matter of secrecy, we see the flamethrower boss getting prepped to take on Jack Slade on the rooftop. And at the airport, a man approaches the phone booth. He taps on the glass to get Palmer's attention, and he points his gun at him. The stranger drops his change and leans down to pick it up. After the man leaves, Palmer tells Hennessy that he can help him with what he's planning, but Hennessy tells him that he's sorry, he's on his own. He's killed 2 undercover cops already, and his cover's been blown. There's nothing he can do for him because as far as he knows, or anyone knows, he's just another scumbag thug. Suddenly, a bright light shines behind Palmer. It's the high beams of a vehicle moving rapidly towards him. Palmer pushes the phone booth door, but it won't open because the stranger from earlier, he was not picking up those quarters. The quarters were placed in between the door to prevent it from opening. A stranger walks up to him. His final words, vapor trails. The stranger points his handgun at Palmer and that's how this story ends. It's a pretty good one, right? I've always enjoyed rereading this particular comic because it's not too short. It's like the right length to get through a story, and it's interesting all the time. And it definitely has that unforgettable ending. It's a bitter one, of course, but I dig it. Sucks that Palmer never got to meet Jack Slate, though. He did an excellent job handling himself against those thugs and Dutch. When I first read this comic, I thought Palmer was Jack Slate. Up until the character died at the end of the story. That's when I was like, this isn't Jack Slate. I know, the name Palmer should have given me the obvious hint. But they never mention his full name, so it could be like Palmer Slate, like a brother to Jack. Yeah, I should have paid closer attention to the story. I'm honestly surprised that this comic was not like a prologue to Dead to Rights, like a story revolving around Franklin Slate, especially since this story would kill off the main character by the end. If it was a story about Franklin Slate, then we could have seen how he discovered everything that led to his murder. And this is where the player and reader of the comic would further understand the start of the game. But no worries, this story was dope. I liked the characters here, Palmer, Vic and Mackie, even though they were only in the beginning of the story. The best thing about this comic here is that even though it does not concentrate on Jack Slate, we're seeing what others are seeing as he continues to solve his father's murder. Palmer was just another character living in Grant City, and he too was well prepared to take on numerous thugs at once. The next pages of the comic show us an ad of the game, illustration art for characters of the game, concept art showing us early designs for Jack Slate and some of the side characters. And the last page is an ad for Tekken 4, which is also off the hook. But look at this. The back image here says Dead to Rights, vapor trails in the afterglow. Was this meant to be like a subtitle to the comic? Because the front cover only says Dead to Rights, but I feel like this was meant to be the subtitle to the comic because of the last words that Palmer says, which is vapor trails. But looking at the front and back cover, isn't it amazing? It gives off the action noir vibes that the game is all about. They captured it well, man. Palmer looks like Dennis Leary, right? His hairstyle is slightly different from what it looks like throughout the comic. I love it when the front cover of a comic has illustration art so good that we're literally looking at realistic character designs here. The old man is Mr. Sanderville. That has to be Hennessy. This is Pearl, although she too does not look identical to her comic panel counterpart. That dragon tattoo is the only similarity they share, but they're both perfectly drawn. We also get detailed shots of Dutch and Marvin, and at the back, I think this is Jack Slate. The face is different, but it has to be him since this guy has a scar by his left eye. Anyways, that was the Dead to Rights comic. I hope you enjoyed this vid, and if so, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. And if you'd like to see your name at the end of the video, along with additional new videos that are only on Patreon, then what are you waiting for? Go to my Patreon, join any of the tiers listed for endless entertainment. The beauty of Patreon is that they don't censor my work, so it allows for further expressions. Well, see you there, and remember to have an awesome day.